Hello and welcome to another trigger tutorial. This one is going to be covering knowledge-based queries, or often known as KB queries. This is a system in the game usually used by scripters and coders to query the game for objects and then process them in some way. I have written a system and added to the trigger pack to allow us to do this in trigger form rather than in code form. So let's put it to use on this situation here. We have two characters who want to meet with each other, but there is this annoying forest in the way that we want to get past, shall we say. And so what we want is to grant her the ability to remove the forest as she approaches it, allowing us to pass. We could do this using a change in area trigger, but I'm going to do it using the knowledge-based system so that you can get a good idea of how you use it, because there's a lot more things you can do with it than simply just changing unit types. So let's start off then. We've got our trigger loader as usual, and then we're going to need a new trigger. We're going to call this one remove trees, as that's what we're going to do. We're going to have it on loop. Let's go into the effects. So the first thing we need to do is to start the definition and say which player that the query is defined for. So the trees, we're going to be wanting to find the trees, and the trees are player 0, although the character who's using it is going to be player 1. However, as I say, the important thing is what we're searching for, not who's getting this ability. So we're going to set this to player 0. Then we're going to need to grab the position of the character in order to query nearby for it. So the queries themselves accept a position, but we want the position of the character. So we can do this by grabbing it off a unit of our choice using a variable system. So let's go ahead and do that. So we can declare a vector from a unit position, like so. So we want this unit's position, and we'll just call it V for simplicity. And then, now we've started the definition, let's set the position of the query on it. So query, and we want to define the position, except we're going to need the free text version so we can use our variable. So here we can do v.x, v.y, and v.z. And we'll have it be 5 meters away. We also need to check that it is a tree that we are finding and not something else. So let's filter down to there being a tree. So we can define a unit type. We could put the specific tree, but we can also just put tree, and that'll work for all trees, not just these tundra ones. Finally, we want to then process the results and handle in some way. So what we will do there is define end, and we've got a couple of options that we can do with this. So one of the options is that we can do effectively a for loop over everything found. Another one is we can add all the results into a parameters object, which you can then process in some way. And either adding to a parameters, or you can declare a new parameters with the ints set to the objects found. We're going to use the for loop variant, as that'll be the simplest for what we're wanting to do. So this will then for loop over each of the trees, and let's take that unit ID, because we're going to want to change the type. So we'll do change type. Unit change type by ID, so we can put our found object in there, and we can change it to some visual effect. Let's have a quick look at what we've got. Let's do the transform. Transform glow is quite a nice one. Then finally we need to end this effectively for loop. So for every unit end. So just to recap, we define a query, we grab the position of our unit, store it in a variable. We then set the query position to the location with a distance of 5. We filter down to trees, and then after definition we then process each tree found. We are changing it to a glow, and then we end the query. Let's give that a run.
是的，出发。
Move forwards. And here we go. You can see that the trees disappear as we approach them. You can further filter out the units here inside using the normal if statements that we've used in some other places. And I'll just quickly glance over some of the other definition parameters that we can do. So if I just quickly look over those. So first one we've got here is an action type. Unfortunately, there's not a drop-down list of actions. Instead, these are constants. There should be some guides on how to get this constant list, which I won't cover here, but I'll try and post somewhere so that you can get the list easily on that. But these are just the actions that you normally have, so idle, birth, move, death, all that sort of thing. It's basically the actions that a unit can take, and you just change that to whichever you'd want. We've got a creation time, so you can set the min and max time from the point that the unit had been created, which is quite interesting. We've got a ignore knockout units. So by default, knockout units in my system are included, but you can use this to exclude them. Knockout is when things like if a Kantos hero dies and falls on the ground and then you can later revive. When they're in the knockout state, it's whether that should be ignored. Position we've covered. State, relatively straightforward. There's a few properties that you can request it to be, so say alive or dead. And then there's also building being whether it's been built. Not entirely sure on the queued one, but that's what internally was provided. And yeah, you can have any combination of these on there. And state ID is like that, but with the actual underlying constant of the game you can provide directly instead of using my my boxes. And unit type we've already covered. So that's effectively how you set them up and how you use it. So one final thing, which I'm just going to show, which is a problem you might run into, is that KB queries do not work on what I call unsearchable objects by default. In the original game, you might have come across the idea of what people would call unsearchable. And this was where triggers like change in area and things wouldn't work on certain objects. Those restrictions do carry over into Retold and affect objects. So let's take this example here. We've got the archers firing arrows, we've got our normal loader, and then I've got a query where I want to find the projectiles and change them into anubites. In this case it's not a mutate, it's just a change, so they'd appear where the archer fired it. If I just run it up now without any modifications, you'll find it doesn't work. So I'll fire, we didn't get any arrows changing, which is very disappointing. As I say, this is because of the unsearchable issue. However, the good news is, in Retold, there is now an option to make any unsearchable object actually searchable. And we could do this by setting a flag. So let's just call it make searchable. And we can just have that run at start, and let's set the flag. So we want to go to set the player we want it to be for, and it's our projectile arrow flaming. And the one we want to do, the flag is called KbTracked. And that needs to be put on. So if you're having problems with it not working, you need to put this flag onto your unit type. And once that's been set, it should now work. Let's give that a run. And here we go. Our archers, instead of firing arrows, now fire. Anti-pipes spawn, and we get a massive army, which we can use to attack. So that, in short, covers how to do knowledge-based queries. As you can see, they're a relatively straightforward system to use, but provides a lot of versatility in the kind of things you can do. That gives you a bit more control over just the simple area-based things. Yeah, hopefully get some crazy maps for this, and see you all in the next tutorial. Goodbye.